Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Healthy Habits webinar series, which is taking place every other Thursday from June 17th through September 23rd from 12 to 12:50 p.m. We are so excited to have you all here with us today and so pleased with the turnout. We are expecting about 475 participants on today's webinar. I'm Julie Chavdi, Health and Wellbeing Program Manager with the Center for Work and Family Life, and it's my pleasure to spend the next 50 minutes with all of you. Just a few housekeeping items. We would like to invite you to all stand if you're able to and stretch anytime during today's presentation. So feel free to get up, move around, shake it out. Your audio is being muted to minimize any background noise until we open it up for Q&A. But feel free to use the chat function anytime throughout the presentation or the Q&A, and our presenters will assist in responding. This webinar is being recorded and will be archived for sharing on the Healthy Habits webpage that you use to register for the series. So the current pandemic has disrupted our lives in so many ways. USC faculty and staff have spent the last year and more adjusting to a new norm of working, learning, and living at home. With the return to on-campus activities this fall, many are faced with emerging challenges to maintain our current work and personal life routines, healthy habits, schedules, and environments. Whether you'll be returning in person this fall, working a hybrid schedule, a remote schedule, or maybe have been on campus this entire time, we want to provide you with information and motivation to create and maintain healthy habits, as well as support you throughout this time. So this series aims to support the health and well-being of our campus community, but by providing strategies and resources to help you navigate the transition and recovery of pandemic life, and to continue to establish healthy habits for a lifetime. So here's a look at our 8-session webinar series, and today's session is on family care support and resources. And we hope that you'll join the other sessions as well. So let's get started. Family care support and resources. Today's agenda will include the health impact of chronic stress, family and stress research at USC, Parent Connect, childcare and other care resources. We'll have time for Q&A, and then we'll preview the next session. So with that, I'm honored to introduce our presenters for today. James Nicholas, Associate Clinical Social Worker with the Center for Work and Family Life. Darby Saxby, Associate Professor of Psychology, Director of the Center for the Changing Family. Jessica Ayala, Licensed Clinical Social Worker with the Center for Work and Family Life. And Olivia Sanchez, Child Care Program Administrator with Human Resources. And with that, I will turn it over to James.
Thanks, Julie. Hi, everyone. I'm very glad to be with you today. So before we get going, let's talk a little bit about stress and the ability of parents and families to cope with stress, which will be a recurring theme of today's webinar. Everyone here knows the word stress, but do we really have a clear understanding of what stress is and how it operates on the brain and on the body? So when you hear the word stress, what do you think of? What do you feel? Chances are that each of you will have a vastly different ways of experiencing and understanding stress. Many of us don't even realize that we have developed sophisticated coping mechanisms for not only dealing with stress, but using it to fuel achievement in life. In fact, some of you may take pride in denying your stress to overcome obstacles. Your capacity for suffering or endurance may even be a secret badge of honor. You might even tell yourself, I have to do this because no one else but me can get this done. This is the syndrome of the super mom, the super dad, or the super employee. In these cases, our awareness of stress and what it is doing to us, particularly among the high-achieving, high-functioning employees of USC, comes only after the manifestation of symptoms such as anxiety or depression or more pronounced health problems. In other words, often only after our capacity to cope has been exhausted or we become sick do we acknowledge what our bodies have been trying to tell us, that we're living in a state of chronic stress. So here's a definition of stress that applies to all of us, whether we subjectively feel it or are willing to admit it. Stress is caused by life demands or challenges that exceed one's ability to cope, thereby increasing health risk. Notice the word exceed. That's because stress in and of itself is not unhealthy. Low and moderate levels of stress stimulate our brains to develop neural pathways that enhance our ability to innovate, learn by trial and error, and find creative solutions to problems. This is because the stress response was designed by evolution as part of the conversion of threat into adaptation. When a threat is perceived, the amygdala, which is a part of our brain, triggers our autonomic nervous system response, which releases stress hormones, mainly cortisol. Threat does not necessarily mean that there's a wild animal in your backyard or your child is riding her bike into traffic. Threat can be anything which challenges your connection with yourself and others. It can be a child's tantrum, a spouse's disapproval, or a disappointing performance review. Under optimal circumstances of low to moderate stress, we process the threat, adapt and grow from it, and return to homeostasis. When the threat is constant and unyielding, however, or there are multiple threats at once, we experience a state of chronic stress. Chronic stress results in a state of hyper and or hyposympathetic nervous system arousal through repetitive activation of the fight, flight, freeze response. We either become hypervigilant and emotionally reactive, or withdrawn and detached, or we vacillate between both. So as this slide illustrates, chronic stress is insidious. It literally gets under the skin and thereby has wide-ranging negative mental and physical health consequences. Chronic stress compromises our ability to regulate our emotions and leads to poor mental and physical health behaviors, such as externalizing disorders or patterns. So-and-so is a difficult child, or other people are the problem, or internalizing disorders where we think everything is all my fault. High levels of cortisol in the brain over prolonged periods of time can damage neurons and neural connections, which impair learning and memory. Extreme or prolonged stress overwhelms our capacity to adapt, and brain functioning and behaviors become organized around fear, rigidity, and an avoidance of stimulation and exploration. In survival mode, the optimal amount of cortisol can be life-saving. It helps us to maintain fluid balance and blood pressure while regulating some body functions that aren't crucial in the moment, like reproductive drive or immunity, digestion, and growth. But when you stew on a problem, or the problem is all around you all the time, the body continuously releases cortisol, and chronic elevated levels of cortisol can lead to serious issues. Too much cortisol can suppress the immune system, increase blood pressure and blood sugar, decrease libido, produce acne or cause psoriasis, contribute to obesity, and more. In short, chronic stress is toxic to the mind and body and may establish a style of functioning not conducive to long-term physical and psychological health. So, as the COVID-19 pandemic hit and USC and the wider world moved into remote work and distance learning, we at CWFL became aware of a pattern where highly competent and confident parents and employees of USC were no longer able to apply their customary coping mechanisms and were suffering from the mental and physical effects of the prolonged stress they confronted. In other words, they were in a state of chronic stress. For many parents, this was the first time they acknowledged feeling overwhelmed and reaching out to the Center for Work and Family Life for support. And we noticed this was a widespread problem. The data show that almost 40% of remote workers have dependent children at home. Employees reported that their biggest concerns were childcare, distance learning, work performance, sanity, and lack of community. In short, the pandemic was a perfect storm of chronic stress in that the burdens on parents increased just as the opportunities to receive support seemed to evaporate. So on this slide, you can see sort of what we became familiar with, that people were grieving in a state of uncertainty, and there were radical changes in their routines as they became full-time teachers and childcare specialists and employees and parents. They experienced a lack of control. They experienced social isolation. And on top of that, we have fears around job security and all of the socio-political tensions we're all aware of. The bottom line is that social isolation brought about by the pandemic meant a loss of safe people and safe places. And that led to an overall loss of connection. And connection is one of the most important stalwarts against the effects of chronic stress. So we noticed a lot of the impacts that I mentioned in my earlier remarks. People's memories were being impacted, their ability to learn and adapt. They were having trouble sleeping. Their nutrition went down. It impacted people's self-confidence and self-esteem. It impacted job performance, and it overall affected people's motivation and their ability to cope. We saw spikes in anxiety, depression, and exaggerated catastrophic thinking. Suddenly people were saying, I'm a bad mother, I'm all alone, I'm the only one going through this. And we also saw experience in weight gain and hypertension and increased substance use and abuse, alcohol and drugs. So for all these reasons, the Center for Work and Family Life determined that parents were in need of additional support specifically tailored to them above and beyond the mental health counseling and coaching services we provide. In the fall of 2020, we launched the Parent Connect support group and the Parent Connect Slack channel, which Jessica Ayala will talk about momentarily. But first, Darby Saxby will talk in more detail about the ongoing challenges faced by families and the USC Center for Changing Families. Darby, take it away.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. And I'm excited to have the opportunity to tell you more about family studies research on campus. So the Center for the Changing Family is an interdisciplinary research hub for faculty and students who are studying families and close relationships. We were initially founded just a couple years ago through USC's faculty-led initiatives program. We applied for seed funding to establish the center, and we're comprised of faculty and students across multiple departments and schools, including psychology, social work, preventive medicine, pediatrics, and a number of others. And the center's goal is really to support family studies research on campus. So we've awarded small research grants to both students and faculty. We host research roundtables and brown bag talks and other events. We collaborate on manuscripts and other projects together. And we share our members' research with the USC community and with the press. So we've been featured in USC News a number of times. We've produced brief research summaries of our work. And we're always looking for other ways to share our research with the public. You can go to the next slide. So thinking specifically about what we've learned about how the pandemic has affected families. We sponsored 14 small grants last year looking at the pandemic's impact on families' lives. And you can see a little excerpt from a piece that appeared in USC News about some of the projects. Ranging from looking at how family-owned Latino coffee shops were coping with closures, to whether child and family therapy services could be converted effectively into web-based services, looking at older immigrants in senior housing, a number of different ways in which the pandemic affected families. And there's another USC News feature that you can see on the other side of the slide. Just to sort of give one preview, you can see the infographic is from our member, Christine Naya, who's a graduate student in preventive medicine. She studied whether couples' plans for conceiving a child were changed by the pandemic. So looking at couples who reported that they were trying to conceive, some said that they were planning to accelerate their plans to conceive, others said they were planning to delay. And she found a lot of variability in couples' plans. So you can find more information about that project on our website, and I'll share the link to that at the end of the talk. If you go to the next slide, just to spotlight some work that's been supported by the center that we've done in my lab. I studied the transition to parenthood, and we recruited a new sample of expectant parents early in the pandemic, kind of in the first wave of lockdowns, and are continuing to follow this sample through the postpartum period. Just to kind of give you a sense of what we found, and you can see some open-ended quotes excerpted on the slide here. Moms and dads are reporting a lot of uncertainty, fear about delivering alone or having the baby taken away shortly after birth, the loss of not being able to have extended family come into town to visit the baby, not being able to receive care or support from friends. So a lot of sort of anticipatory grief and fear that's characterized the experience of pregnancy in this sample. You'll see on the left of the slide, we looked at depression in our sample using the Beck Depression Inventory, which is a standard measure of depression. And we found that about half of the sample had scores on that measure that were above the clinical cutoff that we use to assess clinically significant depression. So the mean depression score in our pandemic sample was at the clinical cutoff, which is really striking considering that our pre-pandemic samples rates of depression are more like 15 or 20%. So this was more than double the prevalence of depression that we were seeing in this population of expectant parents during the pandemic. You can also see the graph that showed changes in social connection, and our participants reported less contact with neighbors, community members, coworkers, friends, and extended family. Although interestingly, they also reported more contact with their partners. So changes to some kinds of social relationships, increased contact in some ways, and decreased contact in others. And we've summarized all of this work into a research brief that you can find on our center's website. So if we go to the next slide, one thing we're really focused on as a center is how to translate this work into clinical practice and into policy. So from the research brief that I just mentioned, you can see this infographic about sort of mobile health solutions that might be helpful specifically for expectant and new parents. You know, given the pandemic, it wasn't always easy to access in-person mental health services. So we tried to make suggestions for ways that people could access care through telehealth. You can also see a piece that a couple of our affiliates wrote for the conversation, again, about sort of using technology to support new parents and families. You'll also see this was sort of promotional flyer from a panel discussion that we did about the politics of care and thinking about how the new administration is advocating for policies that might support things like family leave or paid childcare. And so we had a panel with some policy experts, including our Congressman, California Congressman Jimmy Gomez. And you can watch a video of that recording on our website as well. And you'll see the link is right there. And then I'll paste in some other links in the chat. We also did a conversation with Elliot Haspel, who is the author of Crawling Behind, a book about America's childcare crisis. So that's another thing that's viewable on our website. So I hope it's helpful to just get a sense of some of the family studies work that we're doing here on campus, even though that isn't directly supporting our USC families and parents. It's work that hopefully will be translatable to inform supports that will be accessible in the future. And if you're interested in attending our events or reading about our research, please feel very free to reach out to me and to affiliate with us. And I will now pass it along to Jessica Ayala from the Center for Work and Family Life, who's going to talk more about Parents Connect.
Thank you so much, Darby, for that wonderful introduction. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm glad you're spending our lunch with the Healthy Habits. That you're putting yourself first, which is fantastic. You know, I wanted to start off, I was thinking about this talk and how to start this talk off. And I was really thinking, like, I would really like to see a show of hands. How many parents are in the virtual room, or even do an emoji, just real quick, just to get a feeling. All right, see a couple. All right, here we go. All right. So just click in. So, and the other question was, you can put your hands down or emojis down, clear it out. How many of you, let's see a show of hands, who've been in a pandemic and knew what to do in everyday life, just in general? Well, look, hey, if you look around in your screens, everyone, you'll see hands up. Now, if you didn't put your hand up, I don't know if you didn't hear me or your functions are not working, but we're all having the same issues and we've all been there. We are not alone. And even coming to this little forum is great. Next slide, please, Julie, if you'd be so kind. I'm sure you guys got sick of looking at my picture. I'm here. But anyways, that's what the implications of parent support for healthy habits. Support is part of healthy habits. So the fact that you're here, you're receiving support. And as you can tell by the bullet points, it's the ability to give and receive support is learned skill with cognitive, emotional, and behavioral components, just kind of what James was talking about at the end of his little speech presentation. The other is, as with other healthy habits, it requires practice and repetition. So that rinse and repeat, I always tell my clients, okay, you got something that works, then rinse and repeat. And then also the support is essential part of balance the needs of children and roles of parents at work and at home. I have 2 kids and yeah, I needed the support. And the Parent Connect is basically, we were trying to find how we can support parents. I'm a parent. Yeah, I work at SC. Yeah, I have all the little initials behind my name, but I didn't know what to do either. And just as many of you parents who rose, some connectors are out there who rose their hand, you know what we're talking about. You're not alone. And so I just want to we're doing this together and we're not alone. So as you can see, if we cultivate, protect, and nurture our connections, then we know that we're not alone. And again, we're not alone, and thereby being able to give and receive support and maintain an ongoing sense of balance. So it's like this delicate balance of life homeostasis is finding your midpoint. Next slide, please. So, we started this Parent Connect back in November, and James can tell you too, we were just we didn't know what we were doing. We just knew that we needed support. And it was a different point of reference. So, that song from Rihanna, SOS, we came up with SCS. So that's safety, connection, and support. Positive feedback about why Parent Connect has been an effective tool for managing stress and preventing chronic. So this is what we did. We said, you know what? We don't know. We're going to ask our parents. We're just going to open up. This is their group. It's not my group. It's not James's groups. It's for all parents. And this is some of the things that we got. They felt like knowing that no one is alone. The other one was the ability to share moments where one feels they were a failure. I've been there. I don't know if you want to show a hand and contribute, but I didn't know what I was doing. And it was nice to have a place to say, well, is there something else that I could do that I'm not seeing? Is there a blind spot? And then you would say, oh, I'm a bad parent or spouse. But to be in an environment, in a safe place, lifted burdens and allow connectors to discover solutions creatively and model this behavior to their kids. I have to know through this experience, I took away. I learned from this group and it's been so helpful. And I hope our connectors, those who are on the line, feel the same way. Just knowing that support is available out there. And if somebody they need it, they jump on. So that what's unique about our group, our Parent Connect, it's the same link. We didn't change it. You don't have to register. You don't have to stay on the whole time. So if you want to jump on and say, hi guys, or I'm doing a check-in, I'm having a bad day, eating your lunch. It's very common for all our connectors to eat their lunch and jump off. It's easy breezy, lemon squeezy, as my kids say, but you feel like you have your tribe. We wanted to get a sense of authenticity and say, you know what, we're all going through it. And just because, there are different professionals doesn't mean we're all parents at the end of the day. Next slide, please. So again, as I just said, weekly open drop-ins. We have a Slack channel. I try to post as much as we can, but it's to discover and share, learn, receive, build. And it's a flexible format, as I said, and it's confidential. So we always say Parent Connect, for parents, by parents, and whatever is said through these 4 walls stays here. Next slide, please. So these were some of the topics when we started. We didn't know really what to do. And so we decided to just do basic topics. And these were the most popular ones that we did. And again, tying in with James saying, examples of stress going over to back to work in person, advantages of online support. And the one thing we got from our parents, next slide, please, is the flexibility of jumping on anywhere. We don't have to park anywhere. You don't have to walk across campus. You could just, you know what, I need something. I'm going to jump on, get on that Zoom link and get that support instantaneously. And as I said previously, by parents, for parents, we've family well-being, beating boredom, mindful parenting, managing stress during the holidays, and keeping connections. And I think that was the most biggest takeaway, was the connections. There was some talk that they were going to, maybe we should change it and have it twice a month. And parents are like, no, we don't want that. We want to know that you guys are there. And we're like, okay, we hear you. Next slide, please. So this is how you connect with us. We connected yesterday, Wednesday. We're from 12:15 to 1 p.m. And the Zoom link is always the same. It's been the same since November. And you can get it, entering it manually, or you can go through Gateway, or you can go to Parent Connect. Our Slack channel is uscparentconnect.slack.com. If you feel like you need more than just a, group, then call our center, call the CWFL. We have fabulous clinicians. We understand the culture of the university. So hopefully, if this is the first time you heard of our name, we provide EAP counseling for all faculty and staff of the university. So without further ado, and I have to say, this speaker was actually joined us one time, Olivia Sanchez, I'll give it to you, the floor.
Thank you very much for that, Jessica. Hello, everyone. Without a doubt, this past year has been a stressful one, and through it all, the university has been and continues to be committed to providing resources that will help our USC community get through these tough times. I'm sorry, was everyone able to hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Jessica. Like I was saying, without a doubt, this past year has been a stressful one. And through it all, the university has remained committed to providing resources that will help the USC community get through these trying times. In this slide here, we have our backup care program, which has 4 different components to it. It is meant and is by design to fill gaps in care where you may have for your loved ones. You're able to book 1 day of care or 1 week. The first we have is center-based care. This is an option for those that are ready to have their children integrated back into social settings. A lot of people wanted to keep their kids at home, and we had a lot of people actually leave our childcare centers because of what was going on during COVID. But they were ready at some point to get back into the game and have their kids socialize again. And so this is a nice option for them. Bright Horizon centers provide care for children 6 weeks to 6 years of age. Their extended nationwide network has also expanded to include kinder care, which provides care for children up to 12 years of age. So that's always really nice for the older kids. In-home care is our second option, and that accounted for about 86% of backup care uses during the pandemic. It was very appealing to those who were not comfortable with leaving their home and wanted to keep their bubble small. With this service, caregivers come to the home from affiliated agencies. They provide care for your children at your home. They're background checked, CPR certified, and these in-home services can be extended to either children, adults, or the elderly. School-age camps. We know that camps provide much needed care during those summer months when school's not in session, and they were basically non-existent last year. What Bright Horizons has done is they've recently acquired Stephen Cates camps and have reopened them. They have also partnered up with other camp organizers in an effort to provide as much care as possible for school-age children. And virtual tutoring is the newest level of support that has been added to backup care. We've heard a lot about how children have fallen behind in the school this past school year due to distance learning and not having the school support that they've had in the past. With this service, you have the ability to use 1 backup care day in exchange for 4 hours of virtual tutoring. And this is for ages 5 through 18. Next slide, please. We've also had added enhanced family supports to ensure that more areas of our lives are covered. As part of the benefit, USC employees have priority at Bright Horizon Care Centers. Through a partnership with Sitter City, Bright Horizons provides tools to find a sitter or nanny that will best suit your needs. The network has thousands of caregivers. The way it works is you post a job detailing your specific needs, Then you receive information with people that have matched. As part of the benefit, you also have access to basic background checks of any potential candidates. There are also discounts for nanny services. And as I mentioned, there is Steve and Kate's camp, in addition to some of the Bright Horizons centers offering camps of their own. Under academic support, through Varsity Tutors, there are discounts on services like instant homework help. This service provides instant access to an expert that can help with tough homework questions on a variety of subjects. They also offer a monthly subscription to unlimited enrichment and academic classes. You can access free learning assessments that identify a student's strengths and areas of opportunity, as well as join STAR courses that are led by celebrities as they teach their favorite subjects. That's a really popular one for some kids. Under elder care, we have Sitter City help with the search for a companion to help with daily activities around the home, if that's what the person were to need. There's long-term planning and guidance that can be accessed through a program called Years Ahead. This program is a comprehensive resource that helps you find the right type of care for your loved one. If you're not sure what type of care they need, they have an assessment tool in the Years Ahead program that can help you with that. Other supports, of course, we can't forget about our beloved pets. Through Sitter City, you can find pet walkers, you can find pet sitters, or any specialized care that you may need. You can post a job for a housekeeper, get some additional help, or find a specialized caregiver that has experience with certain types of conditions like ADD, autism, cancer, heart defects, or learning disabilities. Next slide, please. Now, this is how you can access some of these wonderful benefits. You can download the app through your phone. You can go to the search backup care in the App Store or Google Play. You'll see the Bright Horizons icon. You click on that and you can get started with registration. You can log into the site you see on this page here. The link is up above, or you can call the number you see here to register. Thank you, Julie.
Great. Thank you so much to all our speakers, James and Darby and Jessica and Olivia. So we have about 15 minutes left for Q&A. So feel free, everyone, to put any questions you might have in the chat or the Q&A function, and we will ask the presenters to respond. So I'll pause for a few minutes and let some of the questions come in. I do see a question in the Q&A. I believe I'll send this one to Jessica. Is the Parent Connect support group just for USC employees, or can we refer others like spouses, community partners, etc.? Jessica, do you want to take this question?
Sure, I'll take that. Yeah, it's only for employees, unfortunately. So that's all I could say. Yeah, it's only.
Although the spouses, the partners are present because they get talked about.
Oh yeah, they do. Yeah, they're not really there, but.
So they're there, sort of.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Great. And then there's a question. I don't know if anyone wants to answer it in the Q&A, but is there a way to give parents more leniency about work from home, especially when childcare is becoming more expensive or scarce?
Ooh, you know, we've had this discussion before in our group. I don't know, James, what do you think? We've had this discussion where, you know, everything's not set up yet because we don't know what's going to happen. And we've talked about the, you know, the awareness of transition and stuff of that nature.
Our role was really to support, because many people, it's a great question. Many people want to stay working from home, to support parents, employees as they advocate for themselves. But we're not in that role to specifically advocate. So there are other channels through human resources or through the direct supervisors, or I guess even ombuds. But we're supporting parents to honor what is working for them, and to go ahead and come forward and say, hey, I want to be able to continue to have flexibility in my schedule.
Exactly. And I think if you want that support, please come to Parent Connect, and we can provide that support for you. And that way you can advocate for yourself moving forward.
Great. Thank you so much, Jessica and James, for answering that. And I was going to recommend the same thing, to discuss any type of flexibility or needs with your supervisor or your school or department or unit. And of course, balancing out business needs with personal needs will be something to be considered. Here's a question in the Q&A for Olivia. Can I use Bright Horizons benefit with my grandchild?
Yes, you can. As long as it's immediate family, you can.
Great. Question for Olivia. I signed up for Bright Horizons, but found that many information of helpers under childcare is not updated. Like, many of them listed their availability effective 2015 or 2019. How do we navigate it, or how can we find a more accurate information for what we need?
That's great feedback. So I'm in constant communication with my Bright Horizons counterpart. And so I wasn't aware that that was happening. So I can connect with them and I can find a solution to that.
Thank you, Olivia. And here's another one for you. Does the elder need to live in the LA area for the elder care services?
No, they do not. So you can get care for your loved one across the United States.
Great. And a logistical question about the recording and the PowerPoint slides. We will be sending out the slides afterwards to everyone who registered for this session, and the recording will be on the Healthy Habits website, the website you use to register, as quickly as we can get the recording over to communications. They're pretty quick, so we can probably get it posted later today or tomorrow. Any other questions that I may have missed that you see in the chat or the Q&A? Here's a question. I don't know who wants to take this one. Some of our employees are caring for both children and elderly parents, perhaps under one roof, while working remotely and possibly transitioning to a hybrid schedule. So any advice on how to stay organized, stay sane, and manage your stress during this time while having to care for both elderly and children?
I'll take that one because I'm in that situation. I have a mother who's 85 years old, and I have two kids. I have a 13-year-old and a 7-year-old, and I'm working. I'm here. I think keeping a schedule is really key. Once you have a schedule, because a schedule for yourself, you're dictating the terms of your day. So at least that gives you the control of how your day is going to flow versus kind of trying to figure things out. And I do that. I have a schedule, which has been very helpful for me, because at least I know I carve out time for myself that I get for me before, I tend to the kids, I tend to my mom. And so that's just one tip I would recommend. You dictate the terms of your day and schedule. And then once you rinse and repeat, then you'll feel like you're more in control and not too, fearful of the future, of the unknown, that kind of thing. So I hope that helps.
Thank you, Jessica. Anyone else from our esteemed panel want to add?
I would suggest using backup care. I mean, that seems like a lot to juggle for any one person. And I've heard great reviews from our parents that have used it in terms of just getting that extra little bit of help to get them through the day. So you can get backup care for the children. You can either do the center-based care, or you can have in-home care. And you can also get someone to help you with an elderly parent through our backup care.
Thank you, Olivia. don't see any more questions. We'll just wait a few more minutes for others to maybe think about a question they might have. And there's some conversations going in the chat right now. USC Norris, there's a free cancer navigation service for anyone who lives or work near any USC campus. And the information is there along with the contact person if anyone is interested in that. Very helpful. Thank you so much for letting us know. And a question from Valerie. Where do we find details of the care options, such as camp and backup care? Where are all the details, Olivia?
I can include the link so that you can click on that, and it provides absolutely all options that I talked about and probably a few more. I think it's up there. It's up now.
Yeah, I backed up. So there's the information if you want to take down the link and the number.
I just want to say that I went to the link while Olivia was talking, and I'm so excited to find out about the summer care option because I have 2 kids and it's always a scramble to figure out summer camp. So I'm really happy to know that I have a good summer camp option for the future.
That's fantastic.
And I was not paid to say this. I just happened.
Of course, you're a parent. That's what we need support, right?
I'm like,
Love it.
whoa, wait, summer camp? No way. Okay.
Woohoo!
Yeah, we discover the benefits on the fly. Oh, we have that. That's
Oh,
great.
Right?
see?
I didn't even know.
That's awesome.
And this is just a comment if anyone wants to chime in. Someone stated they're having a hard time keeping up with the COVID variant information in regards to children and just feeling simply overwhelmed with workload and just day-to-day routine.
Yeah, I completely get that. And right before this webinar started, I was saying I feel like things are such a moving target with, having kids at LAUSD and what's happening with reopenings and mitigation. I mean, the one thing that I'm kind of clinging to is that even with the new variants, because kids are relatively less strongly affected by COVID than older adults, for example, it's more equivalent to like a seasonal flu in terms of the risk level of serious illness or hospitalization or death. So, vaccinated adults and young kids, if you think of it more like a seasonal flu than if you think of it as this like deadly, horrendous, disease that like the highest risk groups it is for them. I think the best thing we can do is try to urge everyone around us to get vaccinated because the more opportunities the virus has to spread from person to person, the more it can mutate and develop these new strains. So that's just my personal take on it, but I think you can really drive yourself nuts trying to keep up with all of the information. And sometimes it's good to take a deep breath and just sort of like, try to follow the science as much as possible, but know that there are some decision makers in place so that you don't have to own all of the responsibility for tracking that information.
Thank you for that, Darby.
Can I just piggyback on what Darby said?
Yes.
Because I can feel it. It's like, let your fear keep you on a healthy alert so that you're aware. But if the fear becomes overwhelming where it interferes with your ability to function, you've got to give yourself permission to unplug a little bit or to back off. It's kind of what I think Darby's saying. It's not all about you having the whole world on your shoulders. The fear is supposed to be a guide that allows us to be on alert for risk, but not that it consumes us because then we can't protect ourselves and our children. So just tune in with yourself and see if you can gauge whether the fear is becoming too much and give yourself permission to back away from the news a little bit, until you can come back and get centered.
That is so true. I would have to close that loop too. We don't want to get to the point where we're paralyzed and be like, holy crap, and not know, and then scared to do anything. So, if you want to come to Parent Connect, we can talk about that. We'll provide support. But that's a very, you're not alone in thinking that. There are other people out there too who are thinking those things because it's getting closer and it's getting closer and you don't know what to do. And, then that's all the brain needs, just like what James was saying in his talk. That's all you need. And then it goes into that whole fight or flight. So.
Right. And what we're really saying is, you don't know on some level, but on another level, all of you know.
You know.
We've all gone through a pandemic. So now we're talking about transitioning back to campus. How do we do it? How do we do it?
Oh,
The fear deprives us of the memory that, hey, actually, it's what Jessica was saying. We hadn't been through a pandemic before. Well, now we got through it. We're all here. So the ability to access that resource and go, okay, we didn't know how to get through the pandemic, but we did. We can trust that whatever the next set of challenges are, we'll be able to get through those as well. We know more than we think we do when we're being triggered by this fear.
and we're getting a lot of responses. So Joan was like, she completely unplugged, and it was super helpful just to have one resources. That is such a great, that's good. And if it worked for you, what do you do? Rinse and repeat. So yeah, you got to find what works for you. And also what James was saying, we've been through a pandemic. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm saying that. And so what did we learn from it? Just like, back in March, we're like, what is this? Like, what? So, we're just learning too. So
Yeah, we're getting a lot of great comments in the chat. If you want to engage with the rest of the audience, you can select all panelists plus attendees. We're getting a lot of thank you for the great resources. So grateful for Bright Horizons, having to experience, going through the pandemic with their daughters and sharing these services with their friends. So thank you for all this great feedback. I think we have time for, I see 2 more questions. They're quick ones. Olivia, this one is for you. Where can we find info about the benefit level for elder care?
All the information can be found by registering at the link that we see here. And there'll be a separate tab that'll be for elder care, and it'll provide all the services that are available. And I'm more than happy to walk anyone through who were to need some help.
Thank you, Olivia. And the last one I see is a suggestion.
Yes, we love suggestions. Anybody out there, tell us what you need, and we'll try to support you. So we can't do it if we don't know.
So this anonymous person is enjoying these webinars, which we're so happy to hear. But is there any kind of support for single faculty and staff to deal with being alone and just like Parent Connect, but for single faculty and staff? So thank you for that suggestion. I'm sure there's a lot of single faculty and staff that would appreciate that.
Okay, so anonymous person, thank you for that, because that's a blind spot. We can bring it back to our team and, see what comes of that. So thank you. Anybody who has suggestions, please put them in the chat, because, it's good to get the feedback and what service and support that you guys need. Then we'll hear you, and then we'll, go from there. So
I think that's an amazing suggestion, because as hard as the pandemic was for people who have kids at home or who have care responsibilities, I think it was also incredibly hard for people who live alone and didn't have as many opportunities to connect with friends or family. So, the more support and resources we can offer, the better, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. There's
Absolutely.
even more social isolation there.
All right. Well, with that, we have 1 minute left. So I'm going to wrap us up and say thank you so much, everyone, for attending today's Healthy Habits webinar part 3. We have 5 more. We will be sending out the presentation to all of you, so you have that information, as well as the link to where the recording will be and a contact information, so you can directly reach out to all of our speakers if you need additional personalized information or just have suggestions in general. And don't forget to fill out our survey, where we ask for your feedback on ways to improve what you liked and what you want to see in the future. So to end, I will plug our 4th session, which will take place on July 29, 2 weeks from today, focus on workplace safety, hygiene, and office setup, featuring an expert panel with Angela Christopher and Carla Hill from EH&S and Marissa Marchioni from Occupational Therapy. So we hope to see you all there, and thank you, everyone, and have a healthy day.